Michael, good morning. This is Jimmy Carter.
Good morning, Mr. President. How are you?
I'm just fine, thank you.
We want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us this morning and talk about your new book, Through the Year with Jimmy Carter, 366 Daily Meditations from our 39th President. It's a marvelous book. I had a chance to read it. Can you tell us what inspired this book at this time from you?
Well, I've been teaching Sunday school since I was 18 years old, a midshipman at the Naval Academy. And when I was in the White House, I taught a few times in the First Baptist Church. And since then, I've been teaching at Maranatha Baptist Church in Plains. So what this is a collection of 366 of my best Sunday school lessons boiled down to one page each. The lessons are about 45 minutes long. And I try to connect daily events or events in my own life each day with the Bible teaching. I have about half time in the Old Testament and half in the New Testament. And I thought it would be interesting to share them with a number of other Christians. All of my lessons for the last few years have been tape recorded. So we went through the tapes, and it was a very difficult challenge. This past summer, I had two knees replaced, and I had some time. So it was a good opportunity for me to boil down a lot of words in my lessons to just a one-page presentation of the text and a prayer at the end, and in the middle of one page of a summary of my lessons.
Well, they're marvelous, and one of the things that I like about them in particular, and there's one that I use as an example where you talk about where you and Rosalind first visited Israel back in 1973, and every morning you got up early to walk the streets of Jerusalem to see just what it was like when Jesus walked those streets. And each page is filled with anecdotes like that. It makes this book particularly special and intimate almost.
Well, I begin each lesson for about 10 minutes telling the class what I did the previous week or what I plan to do the next week, or either take some top headlines from the news media and relate them to the Bible teaching, because I think it's very important as a teacher who's not a theologian but just a politician, a former politician, a former naval officer, to connect Bible lessons with our daily lives. And so that's what I did. And of course, we've traveled to more than 135 countries in the world, so I'm able to answer questions from the audience, from my people who come to the class, and also relate them to my own personal experiences.
Yeah. Well, take us inside the White House for a moment. As we think sometimes the president may only have time for briefing memos and NSA secret documents. Does a president have time in his day for a book like this on his bedroom side table?
Well, I think so, particularly if you just want to read one page each day. So that's why I made it 366 lessons, even covering leap year, as you can see. And either a lot of people have, when they get the book, they read it all the way through, and then they go back and maybe follow one page at a time. Rosa and I have, for the last 35 or more years, long before I went to the White House, have read the Bible out loud each night. One night she reads, the next night I read.
Yeah.
And for the last 15 or 20 years, we've read it in Spanish just to practice our second language. So it takes us all the way through the Bible and back again. So this might be an alternative to reading the Bible itself. But I think it's going to be an interesting book for people just to get acquainted with me better, and also to connect Bible lessons, half in the Old Testament, half in the New Testament, to daily lives and experiences that are pertinent to us in the modern, fast-changing technological world.
It is an ever-changing world, and we're now thrust right in the middle of choosing a new president these days, and I think that faith has become such a big part of the campaign and of choosing our politicians, even more so than when I was younger. How does a president live out their faith when serving in the Oval Office? You face so many difficult leadership decisions, life and death decisions. But on a day-to-day basis, does a president get to attend worship on a regular basis? Does a president pray on a regular basis?
Well, we did. As I said, we ended each day, with by reading the Bible aloud to each other. And when we were apart, like if Rosa was traveling or I was traveling, we would read the same passage, so it kind of connected us to each other at the end of each day. And we attended the nearest Bible class to the White House. When we were in Washington, we went to the First Baptist Church. When we were at Camp David, for instance, on the weekend, we'd bring in a chaplain from a nearby Army base to conduct religious services. So we had a regular, ordinary, as much as possible as a president, religious experience while I was president. But I was very careful to separate church and state. I never had any religious services in the White House, which other presidents have done. And we kept my own teaching, for instance, private. When I taught at First Baptist Church, I think 14 or 15 times, we never let the public know ahead of time that I was going to be the teacher as a substitute for our regular teacher. So we tried to keep my own religious faith out of the public picture while I was president. As far as I'm a Baptist, I'm a Christian, I never did. I made a very extra effort not to use my Christian authority as president to promote my own faith in preference to others in the United States. So I was very careful about that.
Well, good morning, President Carter. I have a quick question for you. The media these days seems to have aligned Christian and conservative as synonymous, and you're proof that that isn't necessarily so. So tell us how your faith led you to a more liberal brand of politics.
Well, I worship the Prince of Peace, and that's a preeminent name that we give to Jesus Christ, whom we worship, and I felt that one of my duties as President of the United States and in my own life was to preserve peace for our own country and to try to bring peace, if possible, between other countries, like between Egypt and Israel. So I was able, despite many challenges to my authority and many challenges to the United States of America, to maintain peace. We never went to war with anybody. We never dropped bombs or launched missiles or fired bullets at other people. We were able to do that. And this was one of the important things. Also, the sharing of wealth between rich people and poor people is something that Jesus practiced at all times, reaching out to people in need. We did that. We promoted for instance, the element of mental health, which has been ignored in our country. And so we tried to resolve differences between ethnic groups in our nation. So we did the things that I thought were compatible with my religious faith in my duties as president. So that's one of the differences. Now I notice in the Republican debates that are going on now that everybody's ready to go to war. I think that's contrary to the teachings of Christ.
Well, Mr. President, we let our listeners know that we would be talking with you this morning, and they chimed in with questions. One in particular stood out from Jeff in Chicago. He asked, how can Christians from both sides of the political spectrum bridge the gap that seems to be growing wider with every election cycle?
I think one thing is to stop the negative advertising that tends to destroy the character of one's opponent. We never did that when I was president. As a matter of fact, when I ran against Gerald Ford, who was incumbent president, and when I ran later against Governor Ronald Reagan in California, we always just referred to each other as my distinguished opponent. It would have been contrary to our best interest politically to attack the character of another person. But that's become a prevailing characteristic of modern-day campaigning, and you see that now between Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich. For instance, going into Florida, they're trying to destroy the reputation of each other. And when you do that, with a massive infusion of money into the campaigns, it carries over into Washington, and it also separates people in our country, one from another. You have blue states and red states that are pretty much antagonistic toward each other. So this is what has evolved in the last 25 or 30 years. And I think one of that is a tremendous infusion of money that has to be spent some way, so people spend it on negative advertising. When I ran against Reagan and Ford, we never raised any public money, any money from private contributors. We just depended on the $2 per person checkoff from taxpayers. That's all we spent. So the total political spectrum and the policies of running campaigns has changed, I think, for the worst.
Well,
Agreed.
Mr. President, we know that you're short on time, and we are privileged that you would take time out of your day to spend with us. The new book is Through the Year with Jimmy Carter. We wish you all the very best with the book and with all that you and the good folks at the Carter Center in Atlanta are doing. Your work is blessing millions around the globe. Thank you, Michael and Gina. It's really good to talk to both of you and to the
many people that listen to you around Detroit. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great day.
Goodbye.